think we have to think a little, I won't necessarily say smarter, saying that it's not smart, but I think that we have to be a little bit more on guard. Just like in California, you know, they have a Beverly Hills, which is a gated community, and they have their own police and they have their own people. I feel like black communities almost should be similar, just because we've already been down that before, where we have people who get enraged or get whatever, but I just feel like we need to take more control over what's ours. And I just feel like we can't always be so naive in a sense of saying like, oh, yeah, join us, welcome, you know, and super inclusive. I think we'll be inclusive when there is no harm. But I think for the most part we've been damaged, and that's something that white America has to figure out. You know, if we're still having the debate about reparations, then we're not there. We don't need to have that conversation, right? Because it's no debate. It is what it is. So until that time, I think we do need to be a little more guarded about how we decide to go about our businesses, how we decide to go about our neighborhoods. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be that it has to be on show that we own this and own that and do this. We can own it just like, you know, Tyler Perry. He can own it. They still got to do their movies there, but it doesn't have to be anything that, you know what I'm saying, that we have to, you know, we know that you know that in the past it was because of jealous rage or because they just don't want us to have. And I just feel like, not that we need to tread softly, but we just tread more silently, bosses, or tread within our own community. We know what's going on. Because even when you think about the Asian community, the Indian community, we don't know the ins and outs of everything. We don't know how they get what, you know, to the, you know, and I think that's okay, because I think it's an exclusiveness because it's in their culture. And I think we have to be that way. We don't have to try to prove ourselves or win anybody over. I just think we have to kind of function that way instead, as opposed to, oh, yeah, we trust everybody, and, oh, yeah, they're really sorry now, so we can bring them in. I feel like we should have our own neighborhoods, our own towns, our own communities, where we have our own police officers, we have our own mayors. What goes on, it's like a different sector or a different state, if you will. We go by different laws. We go by different things. It's not run the same way. And I feel like if it is your calling to stay in America, because there are some people that are like, I'm going to Africa, I'm going to Bermuda, I'm going, you know, they're going other places. They don't have to be here. But I feel like if you feel like you're meant to stay in America and fight the good fight and do that, I think you just can't be worried about what the other team is doing, and you got to be ready to be down for anything. Sorry, that was a little long-winded.
No, I really agree with that in so many levels. And this is the reason why I said, you know, what was actually Dr. King's vision. I think we lost our way. It was not for us to sacrifice ourselves and lose our own identity. When my parents were growing up, they remember having African-centered, you know, it wasn't necessarily African-centered, but my dad would learn Langston Hughes. My dad learned about Frederick Douglass. My dad learned about W.E.B. Du Bois, and they knew about Booker T. Washington. It was not part of the curriculum, but it was taught. So now you're in a classroom with teachers who don't know about Frederick Douglass, who don't know about your African scientists and African American scientists. They don't know about your African American lawyers. They don't know about your literature. And so, and if they give you something, they're like, oh, well, look, we're going to give you a courtesy. We're going to give you this one little drop here for you to have. And so what we've done is we've diminished the value of our own community. And so that's the reason why you have people thinking they don't want to come and move into our community, because the people who they may know who they are, but our own children don't know who they are. You know, there was the sense of pride in our community, but when you have teachers who don't know who you are, they don't know all they know is that you were a slave. How can they infuse that sense of pride in you and that sense of purpose in you, which is what kept these black communities thriving in spite of Jim Crow? They were thriving because people were teaching their own children. They had their own doctors. They had their own lawyers, and they were continuously reaffirming each other. When we had integration, now you are no longer getting this reaffirmation of who you are. And so, you know, and so I think that we have to revisit, if you're going to put your child in a public school, what does that mean as a black parent? Or you got to go in there with your own book, or you got to be at home doing your job, making sure your children know who they are from Africa to America. If you're not doing that, you're surrendering your child to this space. sorry.
One of the things that has surprised me, and one of my complaints that I have even with some of my fellow media folks, and it's one of the things that we fight regularly and try to bring more awareness of, even on this program right here, is that sometimes our own power structures, like you mentioned earlier, one of you did about the black millionaires, and a lot of times it was you, Nadia. They don't do enough job of supporting our own communities and things of that nature. But I would even argue that our own media doesn't do a good job of that. I mean, we've got black newspapers throughout the country and everything. We've got black scientists that are doing great works some are working for major corporations. They might be working either on their own or working for like a Cree or a Glaxo or something like that. But I don't know the last time that I picked up a copy of one of our black papers, whether it's Raleigh, Durham, Wilmington, D.C., whatever, and actually saw a feature article on these scientists. I know they exist because I got friends that are in those science fields, so I know that they exist, but I don't know the last time that our own media went out there and tried to find them, because I'm sure that they have fascinating stories that they would love to tell.
I have not been interviewed at St. Sya by black media, and they know of my existence. I have not had Durham committee of the Durham Committee of Affairs of Black People come and ask me, what do I need? So we're not even, so there's this thing about us even supporting our own institutions. Like you said, we've got institutions right here, we've got doctors right here, we've got lawyers right here that we do not know about, and we're not celebrating what they are doing. Because what can you say? What do you want?
Yeah, I was going to say, I do think that we have to go about our people differently. I think we have to navigate and move differently. Me and my husband actually attempted to buy a house off of Fayetteville Street, trying to go back to the neighborhood, be closer to Central, maybe even open a nice business out there. But we were outbid by cash buyers, right? So, and we were going through a traditional loan. But when we were even thinking about buying off of Fayetteville Street a home, we were recruiting other people that were just like us, right? So I think in the sense of black people sticking together, you should already maybe have in mind who your contact and reach out to. If you have all these, black people with bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, doctorates, whatever, it's like, why don't we come together and be neighbors? Why don't we come together and buy the block? Why don't we come together and be within the neighborhood together and uplift the homes? And, I feel like it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard because it hasn't been done before. But I feel like that's in the sense of us sticking together. I don't think we're necessarily looking for all black people to be on board, because they're not, but you look for like-minded people to be on board. If you're educated, not even that if you're educated, because there's some brilliant people who don't have an education, but if you're on the same page, if you're on the same agreement level, I think that's where you start with doing something great and kind of sticking together in that sense. Like, even if it was, again, with businesses, it's like, okay, well, why don't like-minded businesses, maybe we need to be in a strip mall together. Maybe it does need to be a hair salon. It needs to be a gift shop. It needs to be a grocery store. And we all go after the same strip mall and start to do it. So then we're not just like a speck in a sea of everybody else, but maybe make it more strategically. But I do believe that we're too busy trying to prove stuff to other cultures and other people that we got it and we're on the same level as them, and we just need to stop. We don't have anything to prove to anybody. We need to prove it to ourselves. And I think that is where we kind of mess up with moving out of the neighborhood, and now they're gentrifying our neighborhood, and we can't do anything about it in a sense because we're behind, right? So it's just one of those things that I think that we have to stop being late to the game, and we need to start thinking a little smarter. And when you have the means of being able to do something, then do it. Just because, it's starting out as a clothing line, but hopefully it won't stay a clothing line. Hopefully it can turn into a grocery store. Hopefully it can turn into a laundromat or whatever the case may be, or an apartment building. But I think everybody needs to be on that tip. Imagine where we would be, even just in our black buying power. We know that that's like, what, $1.1 trillion. Out of each dollar that's spent in that $1.1 trillion, only 2 cents comes back to the black community, of the black business. Why is that? And I do think that there are some reasons for that. I don't think that everybody in the black community and the black business community is perfect. I think we do need kind of a revamp on our businesses, because I do think that's where the stigma came from, is it hasn't been consistent. So I feel like if we can get consistency, if we can do better, I feel like we should be able to be supported. Your school should be able to be reported on. The podcast should be able to be reported on. But I think we have to get on the same page, and I just don't think we're quite there.
Yeah, after 23 years, we're like, you know what? We have who we need to have. And you do. And that's I've gone through all of that, what you're saying, and what you're saying. And the thing is, I think we have to come up, like you said, with a strategy. And I was listening to a friend the other day talking about, people were saying, wow, Cary has become a little India. And his response to them was, yeah, they planned that 40 years ago or 20 years ago. They decided that Cary was going to be the hub, and they created a spiritual space. They created their temple there, and then it became a space of attraction. And so we need to do the same, figure out the same kind of thing here. What do we create that would be an attraction? And Durham had it, because everybody came from other places to Durham to build this Black Wall Street. So we need to go back and because I agree with what you're saying. We need to find a way, because I'm in a Black community. I'm in a community that was Black from 1973 or all through my childhood. Right. And now I have gentrification. I have white people who have moved into my city, and we're running up and down the street, and they're jogging, and they have their dogs. And my mom is about to lose her mind at the store. And she's like, when did they get in? And so, but where was the agency to kind of, where was our restrictive covenant? Like you were saying about gated communities that said you can't move in this community unless you achieve these certain qualities. We don't have that. So anybody can move in. So, we need to do, we've got to be very strategic in what we do. And we've been very strategic with St. Sya. You can go out here and get a whole lot of grant money, but then if I get the grant money, people are going to want, anybody can come. And anybody can't come. I'm not open to everything. So,
I think that that's... Yeah. I think that's something that the Black community wrestles with. I think we're afraid to tell some people no, and I think you do have to tell some people no, even our people, if they're not on the same page as us. If they're not on the same page, if they don't want the same goals, if they don't want the same things that we're fighting so hard for, we can't let anybody just in there and just, shoot it all the way down or, bring it down to ruins. And I just feel like, it's one of those things, like you have a family business and Cousin Joe, who ain't got himself together, is in there stealing money. And it's just like Cousin Joe can't be a part of this business because we have things to do. And I think that is okay. I think any family has that, and as a Black community, as an African American family, you have to be with like-minded people until they jump on board. When they jump on board or when they're on the same tip, no problem. But until then, we have to get with like-minded African Americans in the same way, in the same place, who are, committed to quality and committed to seeing a change and move forward from there. But I think that's the solution. I think we'll have to kind of start small. I think it'll take, years and years and years. But I think, like I said, if everybody or some people or a few just walk in their gifts, even at that, or be able to sow in a seed into somebody else, once they've made it, or, even have a little bit, I think that would be great. But I just feel like our mentality just has to kind of change and move forward towards that.
Right.
And Dr. Noni, how many students are there currently? I know that when y'all do the presentation over at Hayti, it's usually hundreds of people that are there in the audience, but I know that's not all the students. It's friends, it's parents and family and friends of that nature. So how many students are there actually at the Academy, and what are the grades at the Academy? I know that I want to say it covers all the grades, but if you'll just let our listeners know what grades you cover and how many students you're actually teaching as you're now celebrating your 24th anniversary.
Yes, we have 43 students. We start with age 3, and we go all the way through high school. And last year, you know, we were very fortunate. I had 5 high school graduates. 2 of them